Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Germination Retail Roundtable webinar. My name is Mark Zinkowitz, and I serve as editor for Germination, and today I am happy to be your host. Today's theme is building a single national seed organization. We'll hear from 4 people who will offer knowledge and a little advice on how we as an industry can work together as we design a next-generation seed system for the future. Before we begin, I just want to thank our sponsors, 2020 Seed Labs, Canterra Seeds, and SeCan for their support. We'll be doing some live tweeting during the proceedings. I encourage you to follow us on Twitter by following the hashtag #SeedRetail as we go along. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available at germination.ca following the event. During the presentations, you'll surely have some questions for our speakers. Please type these into the chat box at any time during the webinar, and we'll address them during the Q&A session we'll hold after our first 2 speakers finish their presentations. Now, you're probably familiar with the Seed Synergy Collaboration Project. It's been in the headlines a lot over the past couple of years, especially in Germination magazine. The project is designed to create a next-generation seed regulatory system for the country, and part of Seed Synergy is a proposal to merge our 5 dedicated seed organizations into one single national seed organization, or NSO for short. But how will this work, and how do we overcome challenges associated with it, and what does the future hold? Todd Hyra is the Canadian Seed Trade Association's representative on the Seed Synergy Oversight Committee, which includes reps from all our national seed organizations. He's going to introduce the concept of Seed Synergy and how we got to where we are today. Todd, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mark. So Seed Synergy, it's important to think about it as a process more than a thing. The ultimate goal is a new national seed organization that will amalgamate 5 out of the 6 current players in the industry. And the whole hope and goal is a better, more efficient system that will serve all of the industry, whether you're large or small, whether you're a grower, processor, developer, and ultimately our farmer customers, and down the line our end users. So the whole goal is about building something that will position us into the future. So what we're going to talk about today is not necessarily brand new. If for many of you that attended the CSGA or CSTA AGM in Whistler this past July, this will be a bit of a review. But if you weren't able to attend, this will hopefully bring you up to speed and get you caught up to where we are today, and then help you move forward as we move into a very busy fall with gathering more information and moving steps forward as an industry. So wanted to, we'll share over the next few minutes the vision, why we're doing this, and give you some background on what we hope to achieve over the next several months. Next slide. So for some of you, this may be happening really fast. It's sort of come out of nowhere, but for others, it's moving maybe too slow. As we've been working at this now for 4 years, and have put a lot of time, energy, and thought into to moving us to this particular state. And so wanted to give you a little background on how we went there. So it started in 2015 with the thought of moving us forward and building a system that would work not only for our for now, but looking into the future 10, 20, 30 years. The organizations that we've depended on have evolved over essentially almost 100 years in the case of CSTA and over 100 years for CSGA. And so over that time, they've tweaked and moved forward, but sometimes you have to start fresh and give us a fresh start. And that's really what we're looking at here. Technology has changed. Grower member needs have changed. developer needs have changed. Technologies have really taken a major shift forward. So it's important that we look at all the tools and resources that we have and build something that's going to serve us not only now, but into the future. When I think about SeCan membership itself and look at what members need, they're not drawing from one single organization. They're drawing from 3, 4, 5 different parts of the players that are involved in the seed synergy process. So it's important that a system consider all of their needs going forward. Why now? Why are we looking at this now? There's a regulatory opportunity to change how we do things. And when we look at the government regulatory review that will be happening in 2020, 2021, as an industry, we want to be poised to ensure that we've got a system in place that will allow us to adapt to what the government wants to do. And as we look at the resources that government's been able to provide to the industry, we're not going to get any more. It's only going to be at best what we have, maybe less going forward. So as we look at those resources and how we want to govern ourselves, it's important that we use them most effectively and efficiently. And where industry can step up and fill some of those gaps, we want to be proactive in that process and not be waiting and have to be reactive. So when we look at the industry, and think about how we got here, just a few numbers that come to mind. And first of all is the size and scope of our industry. We have close to $6 billion in impact in the total industry. And from the seed industry itself, over $2.5 billion. There are over 3,000 individual players, and that's large, small processors, seed growers, every link in the chain, adding up to over 3,000 individual components. I've already mentioned that it's been 5 years, coming up on 5 years that we've started this process. And so it's time to put some end goals in place and move things forward. And the 5 organizations, the ultimate goal is to bring those to be one that will provide better services for the overall industry. So when we look at our vision that we've had from the start, I just want to read this to you, and we've been using this as our guideposts right from the beginning. And we want a reformed, industry-led, government-enabled system that effectively attracts investment, fosters innovation, and delivers new, tailored seed traits to the customers efficiently to create value for our members. So that's our goal. And by doing it together, having everybody in the room, not always agreeing, but having those good, hard discussions, that's the best way to move us forward.
Thank you so much, Todd. We're going to switch over to Dave Hansen now. Dave is the CropLife Canada representative on the Seed Synergy Oversight Committee, and he's going to talk a little bit about building a national seed organization, the potential benefits of it, and what the next steps are. Take it away, Dave.
Good. Thanks very much, Mark, and I really appreciate the opportunity to participate in such quite a compelling sort of story and an opportunity for the national seed organizations here in Canada. As you mentioned, Mark, we really are working towards building tomorrow's seed industry today. And it's really, really important that we understand that what we're constructing here really is a brand new entity versus something that is just a hodgepodge of merging existing entities. So we really have been working with a whiteboard since the very beginnings on all the rest of this, but utilizing the decades of experience that this industry has brought forward. That all the members are contributing towards, but really looking towards the future of what this organization is going to be all about in the future. So really, we have to think about some of the strategic questions of the why. We can look at it and say, well, we've been working fine along the track that we've been going for a number of decades, but we really need to be thinking about what does the future need and what does it hold for us as an industry. And certainly the issue in and around being able to bring one single voice to the table to help us deal with many of the issues that certainly are facing our industry today we are much better as a group and under one umbrella than we would be on an individual basis. We also need to be thinking about what are the needs of the specific organizations on a go-forward basis, and how best does an industry serve the needs of what our members will be addressing in the coming years ahead. And so we believe that having a national seed organization will certainly enhance our abilities to do that. We also need to remember that we're operating on a global scale here, and even though we deal in the seed industry as getting into various regions of the country, we still are operating on a local level, but we're also working in a global economy, and we need to make sure that as an industry that we remain competitive, and we also remain attractive for the terms and purposes that it relates to investment. So again, if we think about bringing really 6 key stakeholder associations together, we're really making sure that that voice is being well and truly heard, and that we are speaking with the same vision of what this industry is needing to create. Ultimately, when we bring an organization or we're creating a new organization, is really looking at what are going to be the net benefits for the members. And if you think about improving our member services, I mean, we can take into account issues around regulatory, we can take into issues the IT and digital services, we can talk about intellectual property protection, plant breeding research. There's all the issues in and around communications and training, advocacy, and support functions that are ultimately necessary with any association. So we certainly need also to take into due consideration the amount of energy and effort that goes into running each of these individual organizations. I mean, for the most part, I mean, we have very skilled and competent staffing with all the various organizations today, but a lot of the heavy lifting still is reliant on the membership and a lot of volunteer time that goes into it. And with the extreme overlap that we have with these various organizations, that becomes very taxing on people's time. And of course, we're all certainly well aware of the continued amalgamation of industry in all aspects. So that's putting more pressure on people and resources. So we certainly have to be thinking about the availability of those sorts of dollars and resources that takes. Well, we also need to think about even the strength of voices in terms of our negotiations and our lobbying, be it with government or with any of the specific issues that we as a seed industry need to take on. So again, that one voice versus more. We start looking at breaking it down into the pillars within the rights of the membership of the new organization. We can look at where's the value and the benefit for the developers, those that are creating the new varieties, the plant breeders, be it public and private. We certainly can see that with the continued work that's going on with plant breeding innovation, we know that the struggles that we can expect to have as we start looking at all the new tools and resources, it's going to take a concerted effort to make sure that we as an industry are aligned and being able to be able to lobby and in the rights and the interests of those entities and also with the growers, etc. If you look at it from a seed grower's perspective, and those that are processing the grassroots of what this business is really all about, their focus is clearly on making sure that they've got the right varieties in the right place at the right time. We want to make sure that they have all the tools available to be able to expedite their business in the terms of modernized and streamlined production systems and standards. We want to make sure that that the certification processes are timely and they're done with the right vigor and in the terms of being able to count on all the outlying factors that come into play on there, but really being able to create an entity where they have one-stop service delivery. I think that's really important. We start thinking about the farmers, really the end users of the seed that we're creating, developing, producing, selling, etc. They want to make sure that they've got access to the most innovative varieties that are going to help create value for their own individual farm operations. We can't ever forget that's really ultimately what we're all in business for, is to service that end user. So we want to make sure also that what we are doing is done in reputable terms. Canada's got a very strong reputation around the world, and we don't want to see that jeopardized. And of course, the consumers are continually looking for that safe and reliable food standards that do come right from the beginning. So we certainly are well aware of the value in that area. We think about where we are with our labs, the inspectors and the auditors, et cetera, that really help monitor and manage everything with relation to quality assurance. Again, working together with the entire value chain and with the seed industry means that we're all going to be able to get and have what we need in order to be able to facilitate that whole due process. So again, working under one umbrella, we believe that will certainly be much more beneficial for everyone that's at the table. As Todd mentioned, this project has been ongoing since 2015. We've got 4 years of a lot of heavy lifting. There's been an awful lot of work, and I really give credit to all the organizations that have put their backs into this and have really committed to building this new business. Recently, the Oversight Committee has contracted the services of Strategy Corp. Many of you may be familiar with that organization, but we've employed them to be able to help facilitate the creation of this new system that we're building. So they've got a very aggressive mandate in order to see this through. We are hoping to have this in a final draft form by July 2020. So really we're looking at 9-10 months from now. There's a lot of work and communications that has to be done across the country with all the members engaging. Strategy Corp will be working very closely with the Oversight Committee as well as with the executive directors as well as with the overall staff. But as we build on the mandate that has already been created through really the evolution of the white paper for seed synergy, that is going to be really the framework of what we're building. But then, of course, when you're putting any new organization together, it's imperative that we have a governance model that is going to sustain this business on a go forward basis. And then, of course, we have to think about the organizational design, and that really talks about the functionality and the operations components of this. And then even once we think as we evolve into next July 2020, somewhere along the line we will start transitioning from the 5 entities that we've been speaking of into one. And that's going to be really important that we get that done right and over a set period of time, and that we can make this as seamless as all possible. So very, very excited about where we are today and the progress that we're making. And it's a great tribute to all those organizations that they're sharing a common vision. So.
Well, thank you so much, Dave and Todd. We'll now take some questions for our first 2 speakers. If you have a question, please just type it into the chat box. I have a question here regarding government response. I think we'll direct this one to Todd Hyra. Todd, what has been government's response to work done so far by the Seed Synergy project?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so from the beginning of this process, we've described it as being industry-led and government-enabled. And we've checked in with the government, both CFIA and AFC, as we've been progressing along, ensuring that they are on side. And at each step of the process, they've essentially given us the thumbs up, keep moving forward. And so they too see the need for us to become more involved in our industry, and are encouraging us to continue to flesh out the new organization and continue to build. So have given us the guidance that we're on the right track, and we'll want to continue to be making sure that we're hitting those goals, so that when they're ready for their regulatory review, as we are as an industry ready as well.
Another question that just came in: how do we involve farmers in this process?
Well, it's important that all stakeholders are involved, and so we've had through the Seed Synergy process, we've had open forums where farm organizations have been involved, and so there's components that we'll need to roll up our sleeves as an industry and get down to the nuts and bolts of seed certification. But there'll be other pieces where it's more of an information component for farmers. And so those will continue. That's an important step in this over the next 9 months as we start to build the new seed organization, is communication. So communication within the industry itself, but communication to our external players. And that includes working with the commissions as some of the stakeholders for farmer groups, the grain handlers, everybody within the industry. It's important that they understand what Seed Synergy means to them and the impact it'll have on their business.
I have a question regarding the makeup of the Seed Synergy project. What are the 6 organizations involved, and why are only 5 to be included in the new umbrella organization? Dave, can you shed some light on that for us?
Yeah, certainly. When we look at the 5 organizations that are there on a I would say on a service basis. I mean, we could take into consideration the Canadian Seed Growers Association, Canadian Seed Trade Organization. We can look at the CPTA, which really looks after the intellectual property components. And we can look at CSAC on the seed testing. And CSI. So on the Canadian Seed Institute. The 6th organization is one that I'm representing is CropLife Canada. So CropLife Canada will align itself with the new Seed Synergy, or the new seed organization, National Seed Organization, in terms of a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, that really will define roles and responsibilities between the 2 organizations. As you can appreciate, CropLife Canada is part of a global entity, and merging the Canadian CropLife Association with this group would have been extremely difficult. So I think we can. This has worked very, very well over the last number of years through a similar relationship that between Canadian Seed Trade Association and CropLife, which again is managed through an MOU. So from that experience is really what's motivated the alignment of the 2 organizations through that sort of process.
I have a question regarding finances. What is the financial requirement of a single national seed organization? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by requirements. I'm thinking maybe you're talking a little bit about maybe the budgetary requirements of such an organization, what that might look like. Would one of you gentlemen be able to shed some light on us for how that might work in terms of an annual budget?
So we're just working through those processes now in terms of pulling together the what membership might look like, what the cost. So that'll happen over the next few months. From the beginning, the goal has been to not add any additional costs, and so we don't want it to cost more to go through this process. Our goal is to be better at what we do, and so better communicators, better in the process, streamline, remove things that are redundant or no longer required, and become more efficient because of one entity. And so to frame it up, the ultimate goal is to ensure that we're not adding costs for anyone in the process, but adding more value.
How can people get more involved in this process if maybe they want more information or they want to have a say in what's happening? What's the best way for them to do that?
I think that's a great opportunity to really encourage each of growers as well as industry per se to be actively engaged in these conversations. But I mean, the respective seed organizations, the seed trades, the growers, etc., crop life are all carrying a responsibility to ensure that the information and the communications are directed through those specific channels. So I think it would be welcomed for individuals that are looking for more specifics and more details to feel free to contact the Seed Growers Association, the Seed Trade Association, or Crop Life Canada for that matter in terms of looking for additional information.
And there's also a website as well, seedsynergy.net, I understand.
Correct.
One additional question. You touched on this before, Dave. You mentioned there's an end goal of July of 2020 to get a lot of this sorted out. But when will we know the details associated with a single national seed organization and the costs? Can you give us a little reminder there on what timelines you're working towards?
Well, I think each of the organizations that we've that are included and involved in the creation of this new seed organization, this national seed organization, will be able to provide probably a different perspective on that. But what we're having to work with, of course, is because we have a very large number of members. When we start thinking about the seed growers, we start thinking about all the companies that are involved, etc. So there's a number of communication pieces and a number of factors that will have to be taken into due consideration. And over the space of the winter months and going into spring, that there'll be a lot of regional meetings that will be facilitated, particularly by the CSGA, of which there will be continued information flowing out from the work that's going on with the Oversight Committee and working with our partner in here that is helping us build this together. So with the Synergy Corp, So as we evolve, all this information will continue to be put forward and to be tested and to be discussed and to make sure that the final draft of this is going to make sense for all the members. So, if there's a challenge that we need to take on, of course, is making sure that we're having those dialogues and discussions with the growers across the country, the different farm organizations that potentially will weigh into some of these discussions, and certainly with the trade and others. So again, it will be a systematic in terms of communication. So we're quite insistent, even within the working groups, is to make sure that we are facilitating those conversations.
From what you've learned to date, what are the top 2 or 3 concerns that you feel need to be overcome to move forward? Maybe some of the biggest hurdles, challenges, Dave?
I think we've used this word multiple times between Todd and I this morning. So I would suggest that communication is really what this is all about. So that's going to be absolutely paramount, and it has been a key topic of conversation. I think that the other element of this is really working towards a consensus on all the major elements of what this new organization is going to look like. So that takes, again, conversation, and it takes dialogue, and it takes debate, and it makes for a very, very strong organization at the end of the day. So, we are working against some, in some ways, some aggressive timelines in order to get this, to a final draft by July 2020, when we get to the AGMs of the growers and the seed trade. So that's well and truly part of the challenge, but we're committed to those dates to date.
And Dave, I'll sort of continue this. I have a question regarding relationships, how one Canadian organization could affect our relationship with international organizations. For example, the CSTA works very well with the American Seed Trade Association. Do you have any thoughts on how one organization could still keep those close working connections?
I think this actually enhances our ability to be able to work and communicate with the rest of the global seed industry. So if you think about whether it's ASTA, I mean that's one country's seed association, but if you look at the global seed play is falls well and truly under the ISF, or International Seed Federation group, and where we can go to them with one solid voice of challenges, issues, details, requests on that basis. I think it will mean an awful lot more to the benefits of our farmers and our seed growers and our seed industry here, and being able to have that one conversation rather than having something that's fractured and something that hasn't been discussed or agreed on to take into due consideration everybody's thoughts and issues around any topic or policy that we believe is necessary.
Where will provincial seed grower organizations fit into this new system? Todd, can you give us a little bit of insight on that?
Well, as we said, we'll be building out the structure over the next few months, so it'll come together very, very quickly. But there is certainly great support for having provincial outreach within the new organization. I think many of us recognize that at a national level, having the provincial bodies being able to have two-way information flow, outreach to the country as well as back up to a national organization, really strengthens the overall the new entity. And so anxious to see how this all comes together, but I know that there's strong support for the for maintaining a provincial type system.
In terms of governance model, Todd, the plan is to merge into one organization. Can you speculate a little bit on what that might look like? Like, would this organization have one office, one location? I mean, what would the logistics be like of that?
Well, yes, the goal is to have one governance structure, one entity. In terms of having the offices determined, it's too early to tell. Those will be sorted out over the next within the next year for sure, but those will take time. The most important is to build a governance structure that works for the organization and ensure that that's in place. And from there, the staffing requirements and the entities will, the locations will start to fall out from that.
Well, thank you so much, guys, and thank you to our audience today for spending your lunch hour with us. We won't take up too much more of your time. We have one more presentation to go, about another 10 minutes or so. Unfortunately, these gentlemen will be heading back out into the field and will not be able to take questions afterwards. But if you have a question, please type it into the chat box along with your email, and we will make sure we get you an answer. And there will also be some instructions following their presentation for how you can email it to me. You can also engage with them on Twitter as well. Eric McLean is a seed grower and retailer in Oak River, Manitoba, and operates J.S. Henry & Son Limited. He describes himself as a husband, father, brother, son, farmer, businessman, and proud seed grower for many farmers in western Manitoba. Welcome, Eric.
Good to be here, Mark.
Tom Greaves is president of Pitura Seeds. He obtained his diploma in agriculture at the University of Manitoba in 2001. With many years' experience in the agriculture field, he's held roles in quality control and plant management. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Yeah, much appreciated. Looking forward to it.
Guys, I'd like to pose to you some questions. I have 4 questions here in total. We'll start with Eric and then we'll move into Tom. As a seed grower and retailer, how would a single national seed organization benefit you?
But for me, after giving lots of years of thought to this over the process, I think the biggest thing is the industry cooperation. We're trying so hard to work together. We're looking at this from a grassroots perspective, and the best thing I can see is that the grassroots and the industry will share concepts and ideas, and develop a policy and advance the advancements of seed technology together jointly going forward. And that'll hopefully lead to maybe reduce costs or of operating or increasing funds available to advance seed industry initiatives. And if that's the case, then hopefully we'll be able to get things done quicker in a better timely fashion and progress to where we need to keep the industry more moving ahead. And this is going to help us in a lot of ways. And one of the things I like about just what we're doing right now with having a joint meeting, AGM meeting, is we're bringing a broad dissection of seed industry participants together to solve, a lot of the issues that we're coming up with. And it's so nice to have everybody in the room together to be able to do this and not have to guess what the others are thinking.
Tom, what's your take on that? How would you benefit as a grower and retailer from having one national seed organization?
I think that bringing all the key stakeholders into a single national organization will allow us to have a unified voice, which will drive innovation for our businesses. Currently, as a seed grower, I belong to CSGA. However, as a retailer, I'm a member of CSTA. Being part of multiple organizations, I can see we're facing the same challenges. Bringing us together into one national seed organization, I think just really makes sense.
What challenges do you foresee in building a national seed organization, and how can we work to overcome those? Eric?
The biggest challenge that I see, there's a sentiment out there of us versus them, and I always fear that the unknown issues and challenges are what's limiting people for thinking how we're going to get this done. Fear of how it will happen, who's going to run it, by who are we going to be able to elect to be able to do these things or appoint to getting things done. These are some of the things that I think are the big challenge in the next national seed organization. So in that one way, I think we're going to have those issues that are going to come back up to haunt us for the next couple of years, because people want to know how things are going to happen, but play by play, blow by blow. And that's tough when you're trying to build something for the first time that nobody has done before. 100 and some years of history with each organization, and we're trying to pull them together now, and they've been so used to being apart.
Tom, what's your take on that?
I don't think that you can build a single national organization overnight. We have lots of legacy and history tied up in these organizations. We're also representing a very important sector of the Canadian agriculture industry. In saying this, I really do believe that we have the right individuals around the table, and most everyone can see the net benefit at the end of the day. We need to keep focused on our end goal and continue to be flexible, working as a group to build our future national organization.
Now, obviously, any national seed organization would have to have some top characteristics in order to function properly and represent people involved in the seed industry across Canada. Eric, for you, what would be the key attributes of a functional national seed organization?
The best things that come to mind are the opportunities of networking, the conjoined cooperation in the room, and the advancement together that we're going to see with the bringing the organizations together. Those are the 3 top things I could see coming.
Tom, what do you think?
The 3 for me, I guess the first one would be a strong unified voice. I think that's imperative. Secondly would be organizational efficiencies, working on common goals together rather than having multiple organizations working on similar but slightly different goals. I believe will provide a higher success rate. And thirdly, better use of volunteer member time. It seems that there's less people willing to do the heavy lifting for organizations such as ours. Bringing the organizations together will allow us to better use the people that we have And in saying that, I also want to encourage anyone out there that's listening that has an interest in the seed industry to please get involved.
I'm curious what you gentlemen tell people who are maybe a little bit skeptical or a little bit negative about the idea of a single national seed organization. Eric, if you're trapped in an elevator, say, with somebody who's not quite sure about this whole single national seed organization thing, what do you tell them to try and put them at ease and maybe give it a little bit more thought?
Just nothing worth doing is easy. I mean, if it was, then it wouldn't be such a challenge. But the challenges of creating a next seed or a new seed organization will be easier to overcome together than as a splintered organizations. Splintered separate organizations would be. If we're all separated out, then we're never going to be able to meet together in the middle and get things done. Timelines will keep going on. So the best way to ensure that the grassroots movement of growers is heard is to make sure that we have a seat at the table and be heard in meetings and not be secluded and protectionistic back behind our own borders. And if we are like that, then I truly think that we'll be able to succeed because we find that we have commonalities between all of the groups as it is. That's why we're at the table right now. And I think adversity is something that comes from the unknown. And so the more that we can work together and we can address the issues early on, then we can overcome a lot of those adversities as we go forward. It's only when things get closed-roomed and the ideas get festering in people's minds about, well, what are they saying and what are they thinking and everything else. And we see this a lot of the time in all kinds of industries and all kinds of situations. And we just need to be open and honest and talk about these things and go. And I think that's what we're doing. And I think we're headed in the right direction.
Tom?
Our world is changing, our agriculture industry is changing, and our seed industry is changing. If we do not adopt and change the way we think about seed and the industry around it, I think we will be left behind. Bringing the seed industry together to face these challenges head on, I believe, provides us the best chance for success into the future.
Can you guys think of an example or two of how you've seen this whole effort to build a national seed organization actually working? Let's start with you this time, Tom. Can you think of an example recently where you actually thought, wow, this thing is working?
Yeah, I'm going to say it really hit home for me this year when we were at the national meeting in Vancouver, and we were having the gala night with everyone in the same room. And looking across the room, there was 500 people, I'm going to say, sitting in that room together, and everyone had the same goal of bringing the seed industry together and moving it forward. And it was pretty neat to look across the room and see 500 people sitting there with the same goals, moving in the same direction, all for the seed industry.
Eric, how about you? What have you seen recently that's really encouraged you?
Well, just the idea that to build further on what Tom was saying, just to be able to have a venue where you can bring everyone together like that, and that's where it started historically, was the idea of not having to recreate the same agenda items from each meeting from week to week. It was back in a few years ago when there was 2 separate meetings, and it's so nice while the meetings are on to bump into colleagues and seed industry people in the hallways and have small conversations and just to get reacquainted with all these guys. And it allows people to be able to do to be able to network while they can, and it allows industry executives to meet with grassroots producers when they might not normally do that. And I think that's probably one of the better things, is that you get to be able to reach out to communicate with everyone at that level. It doesn't matter who and where you're at. You can reach out to people there. So
thanks so much, guys. Unfortunately, we won't have time for questions. Eric and Tom are very busy out in the field. If you have a question for them, you can email it to me at the email address you see right now on your screen, and just let us know who your question is directed to, and we will get it to them. Or feel free to reach out to either of these gentlemen on Twitter. Thanks so much, guys. Have fun out in the field.
We will, definitely. Thanks for that.
Yep, no, it was great. All the best.
Well, that is all the time we have today. I want to thank you all so much for spending your lunch hour with us. If you'd like more information on this topic, visit seedsynergy.net. I'd like to take one more opportunity to thank our sponsors, 2020 Seed Labs, Canterra Seeds, and SeCan, for their support. Once again, this webinar will be available for viewing online at germination.ca within 24 hours. Thank you so much and have a great day.